By 9 in the morning, my dad was already outside my bedroom door, pounding like the hinges owed him money, his voice ricocheting through the walls as he shouted my name. Ellie stood behind me in her pajamas, clutching the Christmas drawing she'd made, her eyes wide and confused. But moments like this never begin with yelling. They start small, with a single text, one careless decision, one sentence that tilts everything. Mine started the moment my mom wrote, "We're skipping your kid's birthday, things are tight," and ended with a truth my family never imagined I'd confront. Before I begin, tell me where you're listening from, so I know I'm not telling this alone. My name is Scarlett, and for most of my life, survival meant lowering my expectations, especially when dealing with my parents. It sounds dramatic, I know, but when you grow up as the dependable one, the quiet one, the fixer who never gets thanked, disappointment becomes something you swallow with your morning coffee. I live in a small apartment by the coast, where the air always carries a hint of salt and pine. It isn't anything luxurious, but it's warm, bright, and it's mine. The rooms are just enough for me and Ellie, who fills every inch with drawings, glitter trails, and that soft humming she does when she's happy. The morning my mom sent that text, Ellie was at the table, coloring a unicorn wearing a crooked crown. She glanced up at me with those hopeful eyes she inherited from me, except hers still shine without hesitation. She asked if Grandma and Grandpa would come to her birthday this year. I told her I hope so. I hadn't even finished slicing strawberries for her lunch when my phone vibrated. "We're skipping your kid's birthday. Things are tight." No explanation, no apology, just a message tossed my way like an old receipt. I stared at the screen for a long moment, trying to steady my breath before Ellie could read anything in my expression. I typed back, "No problem," because what do you say when the people who should care the most barely show up? But it wasn't no problem. Not for me, and certainly not for Ellie. I moved through the rest of the day pretending everything was normal, helped Ellie glue sparkles to her drawing, answered work messages, ignored the sting in my chest every time I remembered that text. I tried to be reasonable. Maybe they really were struggling. Maybe something came up. But then I remembered the years I covered their phone bill after Dad lost yet another job, the months I paid their insurance so they could keep their car, the repairs, the late-night calls, the emergency money that always felt urgent until I needed help. My parents loved the idea of family loyalty, especially when it benefited them. Ellie's birthday arrived that weekend. She wore a little purple dress and asked if we could bake cupcakes instead of buying a cake. Rain hit the windows hard, so I set up a small picnic blanket in the living room. We played her favorite songs, opened a few gifts I'd saved for, and invited 2 friends from school whose parents were kind enough to bring them. She laughed, danced, and soaked in what she could. But when the day slowed down and her friends went home, she picked up a cupcake, stared at the single candle I'd saved just for her, and whispered, "Maybe next year." She didn't cry. She just cleaned up the glitter and pretended everything was fine, in that way children do when they don't want to burden you. But something inside me shifted that night. Not anger, at least not yet, just a quiet ache I knew too well. Christmas came quickly after that, the way it always does when you're racing between work, bills, and a child who counts down with paper rings wrapped around his wrist. Ellie woke up early that morning, in her red pajamas, holding the drawing she'd made for my parents. 2 grandparents holding hands, with a little girl between them, a tiny heart floating over their heads. She sat by the window waiting, humming softly like she could keep hope alive with the sound. I made cocoa. I kept checking my phone. I pretended I wasn't checking. Noon passed, then 2, then 3. Not a call. Not one message, not even a stray emoji, just silence, heavy and familiar. "Maybe they're busy," I said lightly. Ellie nodded, but her shoulders sank the way they do when she's trying hard not to cry. When she went to the living room to watch a movie, I opened my laptop. I shouldn't have. Some part of me knew better. But habit is stubborn when you've spent years convincing yourself your family is better than their behavior. The moment the screen lit up, I saw it. A Christmas tree taller than their ceiling. Mountains of wrapped gifts stacked across the floor. Balloon arches twisting over the doorway. My sister Marissa's kids ripping open presents like a holiday commercial. My mom stood behind them holding a glitter-covered gift box, smiling so wide her eyes disappeared. The caption above it all hit like a slap. So blessed to be with our favorite little ones. Favorite. The word cut deeper than any insult could. I didn't realize Ellie had come up behind me until her hand touched my arm. She saw everything. The balloons, the gifts, the joy she had never been included in. She didn't speak for a moment. Her small face went still in a way no 7-year-old should. Then she whispered, "They forgot me again, didn't they?" I swallowed hard, but nothing came out. I hugged her, but she stayed quiet, staring at the bright, happy faces on the screen, the same faces that couldn't spare her a simple message. The rest of the evening, I drifted through the apartment like a shadow. I reheated dinner, folded blankets, replied to work messages I barely read. Ellie painted at the table, dragging gold and deep blue across the paper until the colors blurred. Every now and then she glanced toward the window before looking down again, her little hands tightening. Later, after she fell asleep beside me on the couch, I sat alone in the hallway's soft light. The silence wasn't comforting. It pressed against my chest, reminding me of every bill I paid for my parents, every last-minute rescue, every time I put myself last because family needed me. And for what? A skipped birthday? A silent Christmas? A daughter learning far too young that love doesn't always return? Something didn't just crack inside me, it lined up, suddenly clear. A divide between what I'd accepted and what I'd no longer allow. The morning after Christmas, I woke with a calm so steady, it almost felt strange. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after a long night of pretending everything is okay. Ellie was curled up on the couch, holding the gold and navy painting from the night before. I tucked a blanket around her, smoothed her hair, and let the weight of everything sit in my chest. Then I turned on my laptop. Not for work, not to scroll, not to excuse people who had stopped caring years ago. I opened the payments page. Years of automatic transfers stared back at me. Phone plans, insurance, memberships, emergency deposits that had quietly become routine. It was a map of every time I tried to keep peace, hoping it would mean they'd finally show up for us. My hand hovered only for a moment, not from fear, but realization. I just quietly ended it. One by one, cancel. 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 No dramatic music, no shaking hands, just a calm I hadn't felt in a decade. By sunrise, everything they relied on me for was gone. Not out of revenge, not yet. Out of necessity. Out of protection. If they couldn't show up for a 7-year-old girl who loved them without question, then they didn't deserve to lean on me anymore. Around mid-morning, my phone buzzed. Not my parents, obviously. It was Marissa. "Scarlett, Dad's freaking out. Mom's crying. Everything stopped working. Did you do something?" Her tone wasn't accusing. It was tired, knowing. A voice that understood exactly who our parents were. "I'm just done," I said. "That's all." There was a pause, long and quiet. Then she breathed one small word. "Good." The rest of the day moved gently. I cleaned the kitchen, washed Ellie's paintbrushes, folded laundry. Simple routines, but each one felt lighter, like I was finally living a life that belonged to me and my daughter, not to debts disguised as loyalty. That night, I helped Ellie arrange her new books on her shelf. She didn't mention my parents. She didn't ask why they never called. She simply leaned against me and whispered, "I like when it's just us." And in that moment, I understood something I had spent my whole life avoiding. This quiet life without chaos knocking at the door was what she deserved all along. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know how my dad would react when he figured out everything was gone, but I knew he would. People like him always do. And I also knew this: the calm before the storm is real. It's soft, deceptively gentle, and it gives you just enough time to breathe before everything erupts. The next morning, at exactly 9, it did. At exactly 9 in the morning, the pounding began, sharp, furious, rattling the frame of my front door like someone was trying to break it down. Ellie startled, nearly dropping the cereal bowl in her hands. I pulled her gently behind me, my heart steady but heavy. I knew who it was before he even yelled my name. "Scarlett, open this door, now!" Howard's voice slammed through the hallway, loud enough that a neighbor cracked open their door, then quickly retreated. I took a slow breath and unlocked mine, but only opened it half an inch. His face filled the gap, red, wild, the kind of fury that comes from losing control of something he thought he owned. "What did you do?" he spat. "The phone's dead. The insurance is gone. Even the damn membership. You think this is funny?" Behind him, Linda hovered with her purse clutched to her chest, eyes darting between us like she wanted to speak but had forgotten how. And standing slightly off to the side were Valerie and Tessa, my aunt and cousin, arms crossed, ready to judge before hearing a single word. I didn't flinch. "Everything I paid for," I said softly, "I stopped paying for." Howard shoved the door wider with his palm. I blocked it with my foot so he couldn't enter. His eyes flicked past me toward Ellie, who was peeking from the hallway. "You're dragging her into this," he snapped. "You're poisoning her. You're trying to turn her against family." "Family?" The word almost made me laugh. "You mean," I said, "the same family who skipped her birthday because things were tight, then posted a Christmas celebration with balloon arches and mountains of gifts for Marissa's kids?" Valerie huffed. "That's not the point." "You're being dramatic," Tessa chimed in, arms folded. "Everyone's talking about how you're overreacting again. You always make things bigger than they are." Ellie stepped out from behind me, small but steady. "They forgot me," she said quietly. "They forgot me again." The hallway fell silent. Howard looked away first. Then he scoffed, shaking his head. "Kids don't understand these things. Adults have responsibilities, bills, priorities." "Exactly," I cut in. "And for years, I covered yours." His face twisted. "What the hell are you talking about?" I stepped all the way into the doorway, now letting the truth settle between us. The phone plans, the insurance, the repairs, the emergency money. Every time you needed something, I called you, and I paid it without question. Linda winced. Valerie frowned. Tessa murmured, "Everyone helps their parents." I held up a hand. "But when Ellie needed you, when she stood at the window on her 7th birthday waiting for you, when she made that drawing for Christmas and sat there in her pajamas holding on to hope you'd knock?" My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You gave her nothing. Not a call, not a message, nothing." Howard's jaw twitched. "We were busy." "Yes," I said. "Busy celebrating Marissa's kids. Busy posting about your favorite little ones. Busy making her feel invisible." Linda finally spoke, voice thin. "We didn't mean—" I didn't let her finish. "You never mean it, but you do it anyway." Howard's anger flared again. "None of this explains why you shut off everything without warning." "Oh," I said, tilting my head. "That's not the real crisis, is it?" His eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" I stepped back inside, grabbed the printed packet I'd left on the entry table, and returned to the door. I held it out to him. He didn't take it, but he read the top line. His face blanched. "It's a loan application," I said. "In my name, using my identity with your address and your phone number." Linda gasped. Valerie's eyes widened. Tessa murmured, "Oh my God." Howard stammered, That was a misunderstanding. A simple, 'You forged my signature,' I said, 'and you took nearly $8,000. His mouth opened, then closed, wrists shaking, voice cracking. "You didn't need it as much as we did." The hallway felt colder suddenly, as if those words drained the last warmth out of the air.
Ellie stepped closer, pressing her shoulder into my leg. I rested my hand on her head. "You stole from your own daughter," I said quietly, "and you justified it because you thought I wouldn't fight back." Howard lunged forward like he wanted to grab the papers, but I pulled them away. He wasn't fast enough. He never had been, not when it came to responsibility, accountability, or basic decency. "You listen to me," he snarled. "If you file anything—" "I already did," I said. Silence dropped heavy. Absolute. "I filed a report yesterday morning. I attached the documents, the handwriting samples, the transfers, the whole thing. Whatever happens next isn't up to me."
Linda covered her mouth. Valerie whispered something like a prayer. Tessa took a full step back. Howard looked stunned, not defeated, but shocked that the one person he counted on to stay quiet finally chose not to. "You wouldn't?" he said, but it was a plea now, not a threat. I met his eyes calm and leveled. I would do anything to protect my daughter, even from you. There it was, the power shift. The moment he realized I wasn't his fixer anymore, I wasn't his safety net, I wasn't the girl who said no problem while bleeding internally. Ellie tugged my sleeve. "Mom," she whispered, "can we close the door?" "Yes, baby," I said. I held Howard's gaze for one last second, just long enough for the truth to land, and then I shut the door. This time, he didn't try to stop it. He didn't have the right. The silence after the door clicked shut was almost unreal, thick, heavy, but clean in a way I hadn't felt in years. Ellie leaned into me, her little hands still wrapped around the hem of my sweater. I carried her back inside, locked the door, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the lock click for us not to keep someone out. Over the next few weeks, everything shifted. My parents didn't show up again, not with apologies, not with explanations, not with last-minute attempts to fix what couldn't be fixed. Instead, distant relatives sent passive-aggressive messages about family unity, then quieted when I didn't respond. Valerie posted vague quotes online about disrespectful daughters, and Tessa eventually deleted half her comments when people started asking questions she couldn't answer. Marissa was the only one who checked in genuinely. She dropped by with groceries one evening and admitted she hadn't been shocked about the loan. "Dad tried something similar with me a few years back," she said. I said, "No, you didn't get the chance." It wasn't comforting, but it was honest. Meanwhile, life inside our apartment softened. Ellie began painting again, big swirls of color, brighter than the ones she'd made in December. When her school announced the winter art show, one of her pieces was selected for the front display. She stood beside it with her hands clasped behind her back, smiling in that quiet, proud way she has. Her teacher said she had a gift. I believed her. I got a raise at work too. New responsibilities, more stability, a future that didn't depend on bailing anyone else out. Our home felt different, lighter, warmer, free of obligations disguised as love. We weren't missing anything. We were finally whole. Winter came back around before I realized it. One evening, Ellie and I were decorating our small tree, the living room glowing with soft yellow light. She reached into the box and pulled out a new ornament, a tiny gold unicorn she'd saved her allowance to buy. She hung it carefully on a branch, stepped back, and smiled like she'd placed a treasure in the world. "Do you like it, Mom?" "I love it," I told her. And I meant it. Because standing there, watching her glow in the warmth of our home, I understood something clearly. Family isn't defined by who shares your blood. It's defined by who shows up, who protects, who loves without conditions or excuses. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the people who refuse to do any of that. We didn't lose anything when we cut ties. We gained peace. We gained freedom. We gained us. If you've ever had to set boundaries with your own family, if you've ever had to choose your peace over their chaos, tell me in the comments. I promise you're not alone,
And if this story resonated with you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.